go again with another reading series. Got my Rocco's Marmite shirt on. Yeah, I might try some Nickelodeon All-Stars gameplay for you all on stream. I hope that the stream quality isn't too choppy. I think that has to do with the network when that happens, but I do have the game installed on my newer PC, so I'm hoping that will improve the quality significantly from the stream that I had yesterday for Hearthstone. Okay. Yeah. My channel's probably one of, if not the smallest on this platform, so any and all feedback and input that I get from you guys is going to be helpful. Chat is going to be helpful, because as I've said, I can respond and react to your chat for content as well. If there is no chat, then I've got to improvise and create, I guess, what we would call like objective content. Like, I guess me playing the piano could be a good example of that. Let me show you guys. Painting like a painting on stream could be a good example of that, where people don't necessarily need to offer input for the stream to continue. And I guess these reading types of streams that I'm doing now, these just chattings, are in this format also partly for that same reason, that I can just read in front of the camera, and if you all have something to add to that through chat, you can, and then I can reply to that. The reason why I haven't done painting on stream yet is because, frankly put, I need to have some practice runs first. I've already done one painting and I wasn't too impressed with the results. It was an acrylic painting, and it was one of those paintings where I was following an online guide and I was trying to mix some of the colors together, and what I was finding was that I wasn't really able to blend the colors as well as the experienced painter in the video because of my lack of experience with those techniques. And kind of similar to what I've explained previously on stream, I think that, kind of similar to my piano playing, it's like I don't really want to use my streams as opportunities for practice, although I don't think that would make for the worst content. I think that it's I don't know, it might be somewhat entertaining and somewhat comical depending on how I do it. But yeah, piano, it's like I'm trying to build my confidence with pieces before I showcase them. I do think Blade is ready for Stormer Show. I think that is the case. Even Stormer Show is a name that I'm still thinking about. Like, is that the best version of my screen name? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a better version. I don't know, like Stormer, Storm. I don't know, all based on my last name, Stormer. Yeah. But yeah, practice. And then Musette, the more advanced version, is another one I'm learning. And I've got the A section down. The A section sounds very similar to the simple version of the song that I've already learned. So I think I may have a music stream tomorrow where I showcase my progress. And you might see some similarities between the advanced version of Musette's A section and the simplified version of Musette that I've already learned. Because of those same similarities, I think that I'm much more confident with playing A section. If I do try the B section on stream tomorrow, for example, you might see areas in the song that I haven't yet mastered. There are specific parts of the B section that I haven't yet got them to performance speed. It's like in piano playing, Mr. Hoffman, he's like a really good teacher. He's like, you want to break it down into steps, which makes perfect sense. First you start analyzing the sheet music, and then you start learning the proper finger positions. Then you start to learn how to play the correct keys with the correct pacing, the correct time, the correct dynamic. Like, all those things are things that you're starting to piece together. And then once you're able to comfortably and confidently play the correct key at the correct time with the correct dynamic, then you can work on increasing speed. And with Musette's B section, I don't think I'm yet at what would be called performance speed. I think it's still a practice speed. Belayed, is it performance speed? Perhaps not towards the middle of the song. I feel like that's always the case for the songs that I'm learning now. It's like the first part of the song, I'm pretty fast, and then it's like right when we get to the middle part of the song, the B section and the codas, that's when I start to slow down. And I think it's because of my memory, is why I think that is. But part of it's memory and part of it is savvy with sheet music, remembering which keys correspond to which note locations on the staff. And it's just one of those things that takes time. It's like anything else that you learn. It's like the more time you spend with it, the easier that'll become. So, yeah, it's just taking a lot of time. Okay, without further ado, let's begin with our reading series. Hopefully that exposition offered a little bit more explanation for things that you guys are seeing on the channel, and the reason that it is the way it is. Okay, but yeah, the channel itself, I'm undergoing constant improvements for. It's like Twitch, TikTok, and my YouTube, they all have room for improvements. And yeah, I'm just trying to make steady improvements, improve and build as much as I can. And yeah, it's a process. Okay, chapter 2. Here we are in Sapiens. Last time one of the generals, uh, one of the generals was speaking to the soldiers about their attire. Officer Dolokhov was, I believe, the exception, and he somewhat rebuked the general. So I believe book 2 will probably be more closely examining the interactions among the soldiers. Let's see, what was that general's name? I'm trying to see if it's mentioned here. Yeah, I think Leo Tolstoy, he tends to do this where he uses pronouns and titles to refer to people, and because of that, sometimes it makes it confusing who he's referring to. For example, he'll say like the general, the aide-de-camp, the princess. It's like, okay, which one? The soldier. It's like, okay, there's like 1,000 of them. Yeah, the regimental commander. Sometimes he just does not use names. And I don't know why that is. But yeah, the few times that he does use names, it makes it a lot easier to figure out who is interacting with whom. Okay. I just got out of the shower, guys, so my hair is wet still. Okay. And plus I'm getting ready for bed, so my retainer's in. The Commander-in-Chief, Kutuzov. So I think it is Kutuzov and Brennau in Austria is where they're currently occupied. Okay, let's resume with chapter 2. "He's coming," shouted the signaler at that moment. Again, the signaler. Who is it? Maybe it's not important. Yeah, maybe it's not important, and that's the reason why he's not explaining it, but I don't know, it's like even random people in your novel, like, they're there for a reason, right? They're not just random. So you probably want your reader to know who it is, right? It's like the signaler's doing something significant at the start of this chapter. He's announcing the arrival of someone. Who's doing the announcing and who's arriving? We don't know. I have to continue reading to understand. The regimental commander, flushing, ran to his horse, seized his stirrup with trembling hands, threw his body across the saddle, righted himself, drew his saber, and with a happy and resolute countenance, opening his mouth awry, prepared to shout. Maybe it's incidental and it doesn't really matter to this chapter. Let me keep reading. The regiment fluttered like a bird preening its plumage and became motionless. "Attention!" shouted the regimental commander in a soul-shaking voice which expressed joy for himself, severity for the regiment, and welcome for the approaching chief. Yeah, it's like some things, what is said and the way it's said is received differently based on hierarchy. So it's like the soldiers respond differently to the same sound. Attention. It's like for them it has a different meaning than for the chief. For the chief it's like, okay, now the soldiers are going to be ready for me to greet them. Along the broad country road, edged on both sides by trees, came a high, light blue Viennese caleche. some of these vocabulary terms I'm not familiar with. A caliche, historically speaking, is a light, low-wheeled carriage with a removable folding hood. And in Canadian, it's a two-wheeled, one-horse vehicle with a set for the driver on the splash. Not set, seat. Seat for the driver on the splashboard. I guess it sounds like it's a convertible version of a carriage. Is what it sounds like to me. With probably the exact same rationale. Like sometimes you just like to feel the wind in your hair. And hence you have convertibles in our day and caliches in those days. Let me see if I can show you guys and girls. Folks. Okay. Yeah, my hair's like... It looks like that. So, what's interesting is there's two different models. Like, I don't know if you guys can see that. Like, they have this one and they have this one. Yeah, see, like that? Yeah, it's like an open air. It's like a convertible version. Pretty cool. It would make sense that they would have those for comfort purposes, but at the same time, they are in Russia, so they probably have less use. They see less use in the wintertime, I would imagine. But yeah, they seem cool. Okay, and it's a Viennese, one of those, so I guess it would make more sense. There. Vienna is the capital of Austria. Let's see if I can pinpoint it on a map. I know it's close to Germany. Yeah, it's bordering Germany on the south. Yeah. I think it's actually, yeah, it is the capital of Austria. Austria is also bordered by Czechia on the north, Slovakia in the east, and Hungary on the southeast. Yeah, some of this I'm remembering from like history class too. Yeah, at one point it was known as Czechoslovakia. And I think Germany annexed Austria towards the beginning of World War II, if I'm not mistaken. This was all long before that happened, though. This was in the year 1805. And at the time, Russians were here, and they were getting ready to go to war with Napoleon. Yeah, Napoleon was covering a lot of ground in Europe, and the Russians were trying to slow him down or stop his progress. The caliche, am I even saying that correctly? Kalesh. Yeah, I think it's Kalesh. Oh, and what's cool is this also has the origin of the word too. From mid-17th century. It's French from the German Kalesh, from Polish kolosa, from kola, wheel. Yeah, I think the foldable hood is what's really characteristic about it, so I don't know if that's the best name for it, but okay. It does have a different wheel design that's closer to the actual road. slightly creaking on its springs, and drawn by 6 horses at a smart trot. Behind the Kalish galloped a suite, and a convoy of Croats. Beside Kutuzov sat an Austrian general, in a white uniform that looked strange among the Russian black ones. The Kalish stopped in front of the regiment. Yeah, and what's cool about War and Peace is that you can also draw parallels. Excuse me. It's like you can connect the events that are happening in this book with what was happening in history at that time. So based on this, I know that Austria and Russia are forming alliances. Okay, where was I? Yeah, they were sitting together. The Kalish stopped in front of the regiment. Kutuzov and the Austrian general were talking in low voices, and Kutuzov smiled slightly as, treading heavily, he stepped down from the carriage, just as if those 2,000 men, breathlessly gazing at him and the regimental commander, did not exist. Like his mind was somewhere else. The word of command rang out, and again the regiment quivered, as with a jingling sound it presented arms. Then amidst a dead silence, the feeble voice of the commander-in-chief was heard. The regiment roared, "Health to your excellency." And again all became silent. At first Kutuzov stood still while the regiment moved. Then he and the General White, accompanied by the suite, walked between the ranks. From the way the regimental commander saluted the commander-in-chief and devoured him with his eyes, drawing himself up obsequiously. Yeah, even some of these simple words. Obsequious means obedient or attentive to an excessive or servile degree, like a butler. Or Patrick in that episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, "Can I take your hat, sir?" But I'd say in military applications it's that way for a reason. Because of authority and whatnot. You don't need chaos in the ranks. Chaos in the ranks can have severe consequences on the battlefield. And from the way he walked through the ranks, behind the generals bending forward and hardly able to restrain his jerky movements. And from the way he darted forward at every word or gesture of the commander-in-chief, it was evident that he performed his duty as a subordinate with even greater zeal than his duty as a commander. Thanks to the strictness and assiduity of its commander of the regiment. Assiduity, I'm saying it correctly. Close attention to what one's doing, so high attention to detail. In comparison with others that had reached Brownell at the same time, was in splendid condition. There were only 217 sick and stragglers. Everything was in good order except the boots. That's actually a pretty far away from Russia. Like, that's a pretty far away from Moscow. So, some of this, like, it's understandable that some of the soldiers have worn out shoes, and some of them are, like, hungry and sick. Like, Poland would be a lot closer for them. Kutuzov walked through the ranks, sometimes stopping to say a few friendly words to officers he had known in the Turkish War, sometimes also to the soldiers. From Vienna, though, it's a lot easier for them to engage the French. Looking at their boots, he several times shook his head sadly, pointing them out to the Austrian general with an expression which seemed to say that he was not blaming anyone, but could not help noticing what a bad state of things it was. He's like, just look at how messed up everything is. Isn't this a tragedy? I would do something about it if I could, but I can't. The regimental commander ran forward on each such occasion, fearing to miss a single word of the commander-in-chief's regarding the regiment. Behind Kutuzov, at a distance that allowed every softly spoken word to be heard, followed some 20 men of his suite. These gentlemen talked among themselves and sometimes laughed. Nearest of all to the commander-in-chief walked a handsome adjutant. Adjutant. Yeah, adjutant. It's a military officer who acts as an administrative assistant to a senior officer, aka assistant or deputy. So I guess we can just call him the assistant. Adjutant. This was Prince Bolkonsky. Beside him, I'm just already very interested to see how involved in the war the Russian royalty are. Like, just how much is Prince Bolkonsky going to be involved in the actual combat? I predict that they'll basically just be, like, pulling the strings and stuff like that. Offering moral support to the Russian peasantry, aka the guys who are going to be fighting the actual war. Beside him was his comrade Nesvitsky, a tall staff officer, extremely stout, with a kindly smiling, handsome face and moist eyes. Nesvitsky could hardly keep from laughter provoked by a swarthy hussar officer who walked beside him. This hussar, with a grave face and without a smile or a change in the expression of his fixed eyes, watched the regimental commander's back and mimicked his every movement. Each time the commander started and bent forward, the hussar started and bent forward in exactly the same manner. Nesvitsky laughed and nudged the others to make them look at the wag. Kutuzov walked slowly and languidly past thousands of eyes which were starting from their sockets to watch their chief. Languidly is another name for lazily. Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, I'm expanding my vocabulary, at least by reading this, so that's good. Am I going to use half these words in everyday conversation? Probably not. But hey, it's cool to know them. I languidly sit in my recliner. But in this case, it's because Kutuzov is the commander. And yeah. Commanders just get to chill and hang out. Sometimes. On reaching the third company, he suddenly stopped. His suite, not having expected this, involuntarily came closer to him. "Ah, Timokin," said he, recognizing the red-nosed captain who had been reprimanded on account of the blue greatcoat. One would have thought it impossible for a man to stretch himself more than Timokin had done when he was reprimanded by the regimental commander. But now that the commander-in-chief addressed him, he drew himself up to such an extent that it seemed he could not have sustained it, had the commander-in-chief continued to look at him. And so Kutuzov, who evidently understood his case and wished him nothing but good, quickly turned away, a scarcely perceptible smile flitting over his scarred and puffy face. Which in turn implies that he's seen combat. A lot of military guys are like veterans, where it's like they serve in 1 tour, 2 tours, 3 tours, and before you know it, they've spent 20 years in the Air Force. I think that's because people in life just tend to get stuck in certain roles. It's like that's the reason why some people teach for 30 years, for example. That's the reason why some people are police officers for 30 years, because they can't break in to do anything else. It's like the way society sees them, they're in that little box. It's like you're a soldier. So you're going to be a soldier for 20 years. It's hard for people to transfer into other careers because of that mindset. But it's like, okay, you're a teacher, so you can teach. When in reality, teachers can do practically anything else, right? It's like the best teachers of history are people who are passionate about history, historians. People who make the best science teachers are biologists, you know. and so on and so on. Like maybe even doctors, like actual doctors are the best teachers in medical school because they've, you know, they've actually been in the emergency room or tended to patients. It's like it's like it kind of goes each way. It's like they can totally do other stuff too. It's like you just have to open your mind a little bit. But in this case, it's actually wartime. So yeah, in their case, I guess it makes more sense. And back in those days, they probably had even less to do than today. So it's like, hey, you want to go to war? Sure, why not? Why not? I'll dust off my military boots. Better than sitting around the palace all day. Figuring out how to do stickball or whatever it was they did for fun in those days. Wrestle with grizzly bears. Another Ismail comrade, said he, a brave officer. Are you satisfied with him? Asked the regimental commander. And the latter, unconscious that he was being reflected in the hussar officer as in a looking glass, started moving forward and answered, highly satisfied, Your Excellency. We all have our weaknesses, said Kutuzov, smiling and walking away from him. He used to have a predilection for Bacchus. Bacchus, maybe? Musician? Another name for Dionysus, the Greek god of wines, I think. Am I interpreting that correctly? Dionysus, the nature god of fruitfulness and vegetation, yeah. God of wine and ecstasy. Okay, yeah. So he likes to drink. He's in good company. The regimental commander was afraid he might be blamed for this and did not answer. The hussar at that moment noticed the face of the red-nosed captain and his drowning stomach, and mimicked his expression and pose with such exactitude that Nesvitsky could not help laughing. Kutuzov turned round. The officer evidently had complete control of his face, and while Kutuzov was turning, managed to make a grimace, and then assume a most serious, deferential, and innocent expression. Kind of a weird combination there that they use. It's like serious, deferential, and innocent. I guess maybe of duty. Yeah, of duty, I guess. The third company was the last, and Kutuzov pondered, apparently trying to recollect something. Prince Andrew stepped forward from among the suite and said in French, "You told me to remind you." What is my French accent? This. Oui, you told me to remind you of the Officer Dolokhov. Hard for me to maintain the French accent. Reduced to the ranks of this regiment. Where's XQC when you need him? The Officer Dolokhov reduced to the ranks in this regiment. Where is Dolokhov? Asked Kutuzov. Dolokhov, who had already changed into a soldier-grade greatcoat, did not wait to be called. The shapely figure of the fair-haired soldier with his clear blue eyes stepped forward from the ranks, went up to the commander-in-chief, and presented arms. Yeah, it's interesting to see that Dolokhov followed through with the change request. He's like, I don't need to do that at the end of the last chapter, and then it's like, the next scene he's like wearing, he's wearing the correct uniform. Yeah, it's interesting also the description. It's like this Aryan ideal soldier, but I believe he's in the Russian ranks. And I don't really know how common that is in Russia. I know it's somewhat common in Germany. And maybe parts of like Switzerland and stuff. Step forward from the ranks and present arms. Have you a complaint to make? Kutuzov asked with a slight frown. This is Dolokhov, said Prince Andrew. Ah, said Kutuzov. I hope this will be a lesson to you. Do your duty. The Emperor is gracious, and I shan't forget you if you deserve well. The clear blue eyes looked at the commander-in-chief just as boldly as they had looked at the regimental commander, seeming by their expression to tear. Sometimes I get confused with the correct pronunciation. I have to look at it in context. Tear and terror spelled the same way in English, so yeah, context matters. To tear open the veil of convention that separates a commander-in-chief so widely from a private. Okay. Commander-in-chief, regimental commander. It's like there's several different ranks here. Yeah, Officer Dolokhov. One thing I ask of your excellency, Dolokhov said in his firm, ringing, deliberate voice. I ask an opportunity to atone for my faults and prove my devotion to His Majesty the Emperor and to Russia. For the motherland. Kutuzov turned away. I think even in those days there was a lot of, what is it called? Patriotism. People just get fanatical about their country, their mother country. It's like, Mother Russia. All hail to the motherlands. We will lay our lives on the line to protect the Tsar and his palace. We must give it all. Kutuzov turned away. The same smile in the eyes with which he had turned from Captain Timokhin again flitted over his face. He turned away with a grimace as if to say that everything Dolokhov had said to him, and everything he could say, had long been known to him. That he was weary of it, and it was not at all what he wanted. He was like, I already know all this. Stop your prattling. He turned away and went to the carriage. The regiment broke up into the companies, which went to their appointed quarters near Braunau, where they hoped to receive boots and clothes and to rest after their hard marches. You won't bear me a grudge, Prokur Ignatch. Yeah, some of these Russian words are hard for me to say. Said the regimental commander. We're taking the 3rd Company on its way to its quarters and riding up to the Captain Timokhin, who's walking in front. Ignatch. Bosovich. Petrovska. Yeah, I don't know. The regimental commander's face now that any Russians are actually watching my show, sorry. Sorry about that. The regimental commander's face now that the inspection was happily over beamed with irrepressible delight. It's in the Emperor's service. It can't be helped. One is sometimes a bit hasty on parade. I am the first to apologize, you know me. He was very pleased, and he held out his hand to the captain. Don't mention it, General, as if I be so bold, replied the captain, his nose growing redder as he gave a smile which showed where 2 front teeth were missing that had been knocked out by the butt end of a gun at Ismail. Again, a lot of these career soldiers have a lot of battle damage, a lot of scars, signs that they've been touring and stuff like that. The ones who were, lucky enough to survive, not getting shot and whatnot. And tell Mr. Dolokhov that I won't forget him. He may be quite easy. Yeah, it's like the closer you get to the front line, I think, the more battle damage you see. Tell Mr. Dolokhov that I won't forget him. He may be quite easy. And tell me, please, I've been meaning to ask, how is he behaving himself and in general? As far as the service goes, he is quite punctilious. I might be saying that wrong. Punctilious. Again, attention to detail. Your Excellency, but his character, said Timotkin. And what about his character? Asked the regimental commander. It's different on different days. When it's sunny, he feels happy. When it's rainy, he feels sad. And some days, he just acts like one miserable son of a gun. One day he's a sensible, well-educated, and good-natured man, and the next he's a wild beast. In Poland, if you please, he nearly killed a Jew. Oh, well, remarked the regimental commander. Still, one must have pity on a young man in misfortune. You know he has important connections. Well, then you just... I will, Your Excellency, said Timotkin, showing by a smile that he understood his commander's wish. I don't get the implication. Well, of course. The regimental commander sought out Dolokhov in the ranks, and reining in his horse, said to him, after the next affair, epaulets. Epaulets are an ornamental shoulder piece on an item of clothing, typically on the coat or jacket of a military uniform. It comes from words meaning shoulders. Epaulets. Dolokhov looked around but did not say anything, nor did the mocking smile on his lips change. Well, that's all right, continued the regimental commander. A cup of vodka for the men from me, he added so that the soldiers could hear. I thank you all. God be praised. And he rode past that company and overtook the next one. Sometimes you just gotta build PR with the troops. It's like drinks for the men. Okay, I guess I didn't need that. I had those headphones anyway. Drinks all around. And now the soldiers are like, he's a pretty cool guy. Yeah, that regimental commander, he's all right by me. Well, he's really a good fellow. One can serve under him, said Timotkin to the subaltern beside him. In a word, a hearty one, said the subaltern, laughing. The regimental commander was nicknamed King of Hearts. Like, yeah, sometimes it's about also building goodwill among your men. It's like, drinks for the boys. And then you're like everyone's favorite. The cheerful mood of their officers after the inspection affected the soldiers. The company marched on gaily. The soldiers' voices could be heard on every side. It's like, what's the word? Morale. Like morale boosts. And they say Kutuzov was blind in one eye. And so he is, quite blind. No, friend, he is sharper-eyed than you are. Boots and leg bands. He noticed everything. When he looked at my feet, friend, well, thinks I... And that other one with him, the Austrian, looked as if he were smeared with chalk, as white as flour. I suppose they polish him up as they do the guns. I say, fetish on. Did he say when the battles are to begin? You were near him. Everybody said that Bonaparte himself was a Brennau. Bonaparte himself? Just listen to the fool, what he doesn't know. The Prussians are up in arms now. The Austrians, you see, are putting them down. When they've been put down, the war with Bonaparte will begin. And he says Bonaparte is in Brennau. Shows you're a fool. You'd better listen more carefully. What devils these quartermasters are. See, the 5th Company is turning into the village already. They will have their buckwheat cooked before we reach our quarters. Give me a biscuit, you devil. And did you give me tobacco yesterday? That's just it, friend. Well, never mind. Here you are. They might call a halt here, or we'll have to do another 4 miles without eating. Wasn't it fun with those Germans? When those Germans gave us lifts? You just sit still and are drawn along. And here, friend, the people are quite beggarly. There they all seem to be Poles, all under the Russian crown, but here they're all regular Germans. Singers to the front, came the captain's order, and from the different ranks some 20 men ran to the front. A drummer, their leader, turned around facing the singers, and flourishing his arm began a long drawn-out soldier's song, commencing with the words, "Morning dawned, the sun was rising," and concluding, "On then, brothers, on to glory, led by Father Kamensky." The song had been composed in the Turkish campaign and now been sung in Austria, the only change being that the words Father Kamensky were replaced by Father Kutuzov. It just didn't have the same ring to it. It didn't rhyme as well. But hey, it's like those comedians who are like, "Alright, San Francisco," and you're and it's like they're in San Francisco and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's here." And it's like the same thing. It's like, "It's Kutuzov, everybody. Woohoo! Give it up. The Kutster." Having jerked out these last words the soldier was due and waved his arms as if flinging something to the ground, the drummer, a lean, handsome soldier of 40, looked sternly at the singers and screwed up his eyes. I just find it interesting that Leo uses that phrasing. This is screwed up his eyes. It's like, he used to tell me that I'd screw my eyes by like looking at computer screens. And it's hard to say to what extent that's true, since vision problems run in my family. But yeah, it's like you screw your eyes up by looking at the sun. You know, then by looking at those screens all day, you're just gonna screw up your eyes. Here, though, I think it's meaning that they're looking up, I think is what it means in context. Having satisfied him, yeah, everyone's looking at him, I guess. Then having satisfied himself that all eyes were fixed on him, he raised both arms, as if carefully lifting some invisible but precious object above his head, and holding it there for some seconds, suddenly flung it down and began. "Oh, my bower, oh, my bower, oh, my bower new." Chiming in 20 voices, and the castanet player, in spite of the burden of his equipment, rushed out to the front, and walking backwards before the company, jerked his shoulders and flourished his castanets, as if threatening someone. The soldiers, swinging their arms and keeping time spontaneously, marched with long steps. Behind the company, the sound of wheels, the creaking of springs, and the tramp of horses' hooves were heard. Kutuzov and his suite were returning to the town. The commander-in-chief made a sign that the men should continue to march at ease, and he and all his suite showed pleasure at the sound of the singing, and the sight of the dancing soldier, and the gay and smartly marching men. In the second file from the right flank, beside which the carriage passed the company, a blue-eyed soldier involuntarily attracted notice. It was Dolokhov, marching with particular grace and boldness in time to the song, and looking at those driving past as if he pitied all who were not, at that moment, marching with the company. The hussar cornet of Kutuzov's suite, who had mimicked the regimental commander, fell back from the carriage and rode up to Dolokhov. Hussar cornet Zherkov had at one moment in time, in Petersburg, belonged to the wild set led by Dolokhov. Zherkov had met Dolokhov abroad as a private and had not seen fit to recognize him. But now that Kutuzov had spoken to the gentleman ranker, he addressed him with the cordiality of an old friend. "My dear fellow, how are you?" said he through the singing, making his horse keep pace with the company. "How am I?" Dolokhov answered coldly. "I am as you see." Like, I'm here, aren't I? I haven't been wiped off the face of this crummy planet by bomb, gunfire, or artillery rounds. So I'm still here. The lively song gave a special flavor to the tone of free and easy gaiety with which Zherkov spoke. to the intentional coldness of Dólokhov's reply. And how do you get on with the officers? Inquired Zherkov. Yeah, this chapter is going on for quite a while, folks. Alright, they're good fellows. And how have you wriggled onto the staff? I was attached. I'm on duty. Both were silent. She let the hawk fly upward from her wide right sleeve, went the song. I'm going to try singing it. She let the hawk fly upward from her wide right sleeve. That like the way that is sung is almost reminds me of that song by Nicholas. What is it? Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, I think it is. In his red right hand, in her wide right sleeve. But here is a hawk flying up from her right sleeve, with the song arousing involuntarily sensation of courage and cheerfulness. Their conversation would probably have been different, but the effect of the song. Is it true that Austrians have been beaten? Asked Dólokhov. The devil only knows. They say so. I'm glad, answered Dólokhov briefly and clearly as the song demanded. Why? You do realize that demonstrates Napoleon's battle prowess, right? Maybe he is eager to rise to the challenge. I say, come round in some evening and we'll have a good game of faro, said Zherkov. Why, have you too much money? Do come. You're eager to lose it all? I can't. I've sworn not to. I won't drink and won't play till I get reinstated. Well, that's only till the first engagement. We shall see. They were again silent. Come if you need anything. One can at least be of use on the staff. Dólokhov smiled. Don't trouble. If I want anything, I won't beg. I'll take it. Well, never mind. I only. Goodbye. Good health. What's strange is that it's like the characters don't complete their thoughts. It's like they don't finish their thoughts. It's like, well, I just wanted to. Oh, never mind. It's like they just stop and then it's like, okay, goodbye. All we had to do was, oh, goodbye. It's a long, long way to my native land. Zherkov touched his horse with the spurs, pranced excitedly from foot to foot, uncertain with which to start. Then settled down, galloped past the company, and overtook the carriage, still keeping time to the song. Chapter 3. Okay, it looks like Chapter 2 was mainly about battle preparations, the building morale. It's like everyone's singing, dancing, sharing drinks. Usually in wartime, this is because something extremely horrible is about to happen. Like, people are going to start getting blown up. And, like, yeah, back in the days of World War II, we also had this, I think it was like I think it's called the USO or something like that. United Service Organization. They'd have, like, different entertainers come out, like the modern day equivalent of like Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift. Like in those days, I think it was like, I think it was before Buddy Holly's time. I think it was like Bing Crosby, stuff like that. Like they would actually go out there to the front lines and like sing to the soldiers to get their spirits up. Because they were about to experience some extremely messed up stuff. Like they were about to basically be exposed to hell on earth. Much death. And the violence kind. Okay. So that was War and Peace for today. Book 2, Chapter 2. Take a look in Sapiens. I feel like we're at like the whole stream. It's like a very interesting setup we have, where it's like War and Peace is like the past, Sapiens is like focused on the future. So it's like kind of like a transition. It's like this is what was happening in Napoleon's time. And Sapiens is like, let's look at what's happening with technology today. The chapter that we're in is Another Life. Last time we were talking about a continuation of bioengineering, bionic limbs, stuff like advanced hearing aids, prosthetic limbs that could be controlled with brain impulses, the advent of technologies that will improve people's lives. The third way to change the law of life is to engineer completely inorganic beings. We talked a little bit in the last chapter about artificial intelligence, too. The most obvious examples are computer programs and computer viruses that can undergo independent evolution. The field of genetic programming is today one of the most interesting spots in the computer science world. Genetic programming. I don't even think I've heard the term used before. That is one of the most interesting spots in the computer science world. Yeah, it almost makes me wonder if I could have been maybe should have studied computer science instead of business for my undergrad. All the different things that I could have learned about instead, but I don't know. Yeah, computers and technology are always advancing. That's why. All the better to understand it. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Oh well. It tries to emulate the methods of genetic and evolution. Many programmers dream of creating a program that could learn and evolve completely independently of its creator. In this case, the programmer would be a prima mobile, a first mover, but his creation would be free to evolve in directions neither its maker nor any other human could have ever envisaged. It's like you set it free and just watch it go. A firecracker or something. A prototype for such a program already exists, and it's called a computer virus. I kind of hate hackers and computer viruses. It's like the more sinister side of computing. Oh yeah. And of course people are developing firewalls to try to fight that. As it spreads through the internet, the virus replicates itself millions upon millions of times, all the while being chased by predatory antivirus programs and competing for other viruses for a place in cyberspace. It's like, what's the world without a few crooks? What's the world without a few hackers and people who make computer viruses? Why would we ever want to live in a perfect utopia? That's how I feel sometimes. Like we have to have our criminals, otherwise how can we lead better lives? One day when the virus replicates itself, a mistake occurs, a computerized mutation. Perhaps the mutation occurs because the human engineer programmed the virus to make occasional random replication mistakes. Perhaps the mutation was due to a random error. If by chance the modified virus is better at evading antivirus programs without losing its ability to invade other computers, it will spread through cyberspace. Some people are really, really good at this kind of stuff. It's like they hack like businesses and stuff like that, and they have like ransomware and all kinds of crazy stuff, and they just like extort millions of dollars out of them. I've never been anywhere near that computer savvy, and even if I was, I'm not sure I'd want to do that kind of stuff. It seems seems very wrong to do. Yeah, it seems like it's, if it was in the right hands, it could be like a Robin Hood kind of thing, where it's like they steal from the rich, greedy corporation, they give it to people in need, but that's never what happens. It always goes to, like, underground criminals, basically. Yeah, kind of sad in a way. Perhaps the mutation occurs because a human engineer programmed a virus. Let's see, I think I already read this. Spreading through cyberspace. If so, the mutants will survive and reproduce. As time goes by, cyberspace would be full of new viruses that nobody engineered, and that undergo non-organic evolution. Are these living creatures? It depends on what you mean by living creatures. They've certainly been produced by a new evolutionary process, completely independent of the laws and limitations of organic evolution. Imagine another possibility. Suppose you could back up your brain to a portable hard drive and then run it on your laptop. Would your laptop be able to think and feel just like a sapiens? If so, would it be you or someone else? It's a pretty interesting question. It kind of reminds me of that computer from Courage the Cowardly Dog. Where it's like, what do you want? It's like the computer with your consciousness in it. Would it be you or someone else? I don't think anyone computer. Yeah, I don't think any computer would want that. It's like, do you really want to experience my human suffering? And the computer's like, no, that's okay. I just like dealing with information. That's fine. I don't need to experience your emotional baggage as a human. Okay. What if computer programmers could create an entirely new but digital mind, composed of computer code, complete with a sense of self, consciousness, and memory? Again, it also reminds me of like the AI from like Space Odyssey or something. Like, kind of like Siri is and Alexa. I was playing lacrosse with a bunch of my friends today, and one of the players that is playing, her name is Alexa. And someone says like, hey Alexa, what time is it? And I'm like, I was joking with them, I'm like, it sounds like you were making an Amazon advertisement. Like, that's how much that AI has expanded. Like, anyone with an Echo at home knows what I'm talking about. I personally don't. I have a Siri though. I'm pretty sure I could trigger her right now. Hey Siri. I'm not maybe because I'm streaming she doesn't respond, but usually all I have to do is say that and she like comes to life. She's like, yes. It's kind of like Jarvis from like Iron Man. And I don't know, I think it's kind of cool in a way. It's like if it gets sufficiently advanced, this AI can help us lead better lives. It's true. But there are, of course, also like invasion of privacy concerns as well. It's like, do we really want someone always listening to our conversations that we're having with our friends, family, significant others? Like, how much artificial intervention are we comfortable with? Okay, let's see. If you deleted it, could you be charged with murder? I don't see how that even makes sense. Like, I don't see how that line of reasoning makes any sense at all. It's like, if I drop my phone, off of a 10-story building and it breaks, it breaks on the ground, does that mean I've killed her? Does that mean I've killed Siri? It's like, no. It's just a computer program. It doesn't have life. She's never been alive. She might simulate human interaction, but she's never been alive. She has not been in existence the way that we are. We might soon have the answer to such questions. The Human Brain Project, founded in 2005, hopes to recreate a complete human brain inside a computer, with electronic circuits in a computer emulating neural networks in the brain. I think this could be potentially advantageous in the sense that it could improve our understanding of the human brain. And in that way, I think it's good. The project's director has claimed that, if funded properly, within a decade or two, we could have an artificial human brain inside a computer that could talk and behave very much as a human does. If successful, that would mean that after 4 billion years of milling around inside a small world of organic compounds, life will suddenly break out into the vastness of the inorganic realm, ready to take up shapes beyond our wildest dreams. Not all scholars agree that the mind works in a manner analogous to today's digital computers, and if it doesn't, present-day computers would not be able to simulate it. Yet it would be foolish to categorically dismiss the possibility before giving it a try. In 2013, the project received a grant of £1 billion from the European Union. I think that computers, even the mind itself is sometimes likened to a computer, like in that song, Stephen Hawking song from Dexter's Lab, was like, your mind is a creative computer. It's like sometimes the mind is described as a computer, because what does the brain do other than process information? What does it do other than issue commands? Like from a certain perspective, your brain is basically a computer. Like it basically is a very unique computer, but it has a similar functionality to a computer. Yeah, I'd say those are the two main functions that the brain performs: perceive stimuli and issue commands. It's like receive input and yet issue commands. And computers already do that to a pretty significant degree. I would say there's similarity already there. It's like I can type something in the computer and it can enter it into a Word document. I can type in a Google search to my computer or to my phone, which is basically a mobile computer. Now, phones have basically become computers. I guess that was the end of the chapter. A really short chapter. Let me keep reading. The singularity. Presently, I think that last chapter was another life. Yeah, the internet. It expanded very fast, and I think it's always had that like Wild West type of dynamic, where it's like lawmakers and law enforcement agencies try to catch up to the things that are happening online. There was a point in time, some of you may or may not remember this, but they tried to control the internet. Like they tried to let's see, what was that even? able to remember it, but government basically wanted a piece of the pie. And it's a little bit worrisome when that happens because it can transform into what's happened already in China with the government censorship and stuff like that. Like some websites you just straight up cannot even access in China. And here that could be the same way. Certain types of legislation get passed. I'm of the belief that the internet should be like a free place. People are able to share ideas, promote different types of content and perspectives. Like an open place. That doesn't really exist. It's just a concept. And of course, there's always going to be people who try to take advantage of it, monetize it if humanly possible, control it, and yes, ruin it for certain types of people. Only a tiny fraction of these new opportunities have been realized presently. This is the singularity chapter. Yet the world of 2014, and this was 7 years ago, by the way. The world of 2014 is already a world in which culture is releasing itself from the shackles of biology. Our ability to engineer not merely the world around us, but above all the world inside our bodies and minds, is developing at breakneck speed. More and more spheres of activity are being shaken out of their complacent ways. Lawyers need to rethink issues of privacy and identity. Governments are faced with rethinking matters of healthcare and equality. Sports associations and educational institutions need to redefine fair play and achievement. Pension funds and labor markets should readjust to a world in which 60 might be the new 30. Like, yeah, some people are always going to be struggling to keep up and stay on top of stuff. They must all deal with the conundrums of bioengineering, cyborgs, and inorganic life. Mapping the first human genome required 15 years and $3 billion. Today you can map a person's DNA within a few weeks and at the cost of a few $100s. The era of personalized medicine that matches treatment to DNA, has begun. The family doctor could soon tell you with great certainty that you're facing higher risks of liver cancer, whereas you needn't worry too much about heart attacks. She could determine the popular medication that helps 92% of people. She could determine that a popular medication that helps 92% of people is useless to you, and you should instead take another pill. Fatal to many people, but just right for you. And the road to near-perfect medicine stands before us. It's like we're not there yet. And how do you know that? Because the government is telling everyone willy-nilly to get the vaccine. Alright, that's how you know that we're not there yet. It's like when the government can tell me that I don't need to take the vaccine because my health is good, that I have certain immunity, then I will know that the technology is advanced. But when they're just broadcasting to everybody, it's like, yeah, get the vaccine, it's like, yeah, it's just not there, right? It's not there at all. Yeah, maybe if statistics were more progressive, if research was more progressive, if people looked at trends and stuff like that, it's like none of these arguments or debates would even be necessary. Just use data. That's all you have to do. However, with improvements in medical knowledge will come new ethical conundrums. Ethicists and legal experts are already wrestling with the thorny issue of privacy as it relates to DNA. Would insurance companies be entitled to ask for DNA scans and to raise premiums if they discover a genetic tendency to reckless behavior? There's always going to be people who try to game the system, too. Always. Humanity wouldn't be humanity if there weren't at least a few scumbags, right? Would we be required to fix our DNA rather than our CV to potential employers? Sorry, I read that wrong. Would we be required to fax our DNA rather than our CV to potential employers? That would be extremely freaking convenient. Sorry, I gotta drink some water or something. Yeah, again, we're not there yet. You still need to go through the job search process, which consists of no less than completing an online application, sending in your CV, having 1, 2, 3 interviews, a teaching demo, a campus tour. When I would hope and think that in as little as 5 years, they can literally just take a blood sample, enter it in, or whatever DNA sample, like blood sample, whatever, enter it in, and then they can just scan my DNA. And we don't have to go through any of that noise. Like, just cut it all. Like, you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need references, because my DNA will tell you what you need to know. It's just the way of the future. It's just gonna dramatically revolutionize the way people do things. But yeah, we're not there yet, sadly. It is, but hopefully soon, because that would make life a heck of a lot easier. I can tell you that. It is obvious that one can own a particular chicken, but one can own an entire species. Oh, sorry, but can one own an entire species? Such dilemmas are dwarfed by the ethical, social, and political implications of the Gilgamesh Project. Again, wanting to live forever. That's the goal of the Gilgamesh Project. I don't understand it. Like, feeling what I felt, like, why would anyone want to live forever? I don't see it as reasonable in any way, shape, or form. Some of my friends have ended their lives early. I haven't yet gotten to that point, but I sympathize with them. It's like, sometimes this life is just baloney. It's like, it's bad enough that I have lived 30 years. Don't tell me I need to live another 100, 200. Because that's going to be even bigger baloney. The Gilgamesh Project and the potential new abilities to create superhumans. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, government programs throughout the world, national health insurance programs, and national constitutions worldwide recognize that a humane society ought to give all its members fair medical treatment, keep them in relatively good health. That was all well and good as long as medicine was chiefly concerned with preventing illness and healing the sick. What might happen once medicine becomes preoccupied with enhancing human abilities? Would all humans be entitled to such enhanced abilities, or would there be a new superhuman elite? I would only hope that it would be for everybody. I've never liked rich. I've never liked poor. I've never liked division. And not the math kind, this really screwed up society kind, where it's like not everyone gets the same thing. It's like if there were these medical advances, everyone should have access to it. Absolutely. Why shouldn't some people have their lives be improved by advances in medicine, science, and technology? Our late modern world prides itself on recognizing for the first time in history the basic equality of all humans, yet it might be poised to create the most unequal of all societies. Throughout history, the upper classes always claim to be smarter, stronger, and generally better than the underclass. They're usually deluding themselves. Exactly, it's like they're just going to have a hoity-toity, we're better than everyone else attitude. It's like, I live in Beverly Hills. Ha ha ha. I mean, it was even on Ms. Kipstering today. It's like, look at my fancy Audi. You know, they just had that I'm better than everyone else attitude. And yeah, it's freaking sad. Okay. they're usually deluding themselves. The baby born to a poor peasant family was likely to be as intelligent as the crown prince. With the help of new medical capabilities, the pretensions of the upper classes might soon become an objective reality. Yeah, that's another thing I'll really look forward to in the future of the human race. Elimination of social classes. Get rid of the caste system. And, whatever the bourgeoisie and proletariat. Get rid of all that stuff. Let people live a social reality where everyone is treated the same way. Everyone gets what they need. People don't need to sit on the side of the road asking for change. People don't need to be filing for government assistance. This is not science fiction. Most science fiction plots describe a world in which sapiens, identical to us, enjoy superior technology such as light speed, spaceships, and laser guns. The ethical and political dilemmas central to these plots are taken from our own world, and they merely recreate our emotional and social tensions against a futuristic backdrop. And yes, the big bad guy in the room is, of course, capitalism. Of course. Tale as old as time, the haves and have-nots, and it's wrong. And I'll tell them blue in the face. I don't care. Yet the real potential of future technology is to change Homo sapiens itself, including our emotions and desires, and not merely our vehicles and weapons. What is a spaceship compared to an eternally young cyborg who does not breed and has no sexuality, who can share thoughts directly with other beings, whose abilities to focus and remember are 1,000 times greater than our own, and who is never angry or sad but has emotions and desires that we cannot begin to imagine? And yes, I have a crazy amount of mucus. I don't know what it is. It's like I have a car too. I worked hard for the money that I had to pay my payments. And it's like, what I'm saying is like everyone should have opportunity to do that. And it's not the case. Not everyone always has the same opportunities. And that's what I think needs to be addressed. Yeah. It's like... It's like the concept of work. In ethic, it's like it's giving people ways to earn, to work that is going to make sense for them. And look at my stream, my Twitch stream. It's like it's not the case. It's not the case at all. But I'm still here trying my best to inform people and educate them. Even though I've lost my job as a teacher not once but twice this year, I'm still trying to overcome and do what I can to help people. Like, and I think that's what it comes down to. It's like doing what you can to help people, even if it means reading Yuval's book. Yet the real potential of future technologies is to change Homo sapiens. Yeah, cyborgs. Yeah, I think it's good in a way. It's like it'll have better memory than us. It won't be beholden to human emotion or anything like that. It won't have the flaws inherent in our condition. Science fiction rarely describes such a future because, in a way, it kind of reminds me of that episode of Rick and Morty where they like go to the they go to that spa and it's like all of their like whatever episode that was. It's like all of their like negative elements were removed by that spa. It's like this. We could have that in cyborgs or with people if we have advanced enough technology to have that. It would be cool. Wouldn't it be nice to actually have that in real life? All of my like social awkwardness gone. All of my sadness and stuff like that, it's like gone. And it also kind of reminds me of The Giver. And yeah, it's like that book, The Giver. It's like there's like a future, basically in a nutshell, there's a future version of humanity when suffering was wiped out. It's like it's just gone. And there's one person, The Giver, he's kind of like this cyborg. He has all the memories of what life was like when people still felt like jumping off of buildings. And he's transferring, but not just that. It's like also feelings of like when you eat an ice cream cone and like really enjoy it. It's like the happy things and the sad things, it's like are things that the giver could remember, and it's transferred to that one person who has responsibility over those memories. In this case, it could be the cyborg, but that one person has the responsibility for those memories. And I think in the course of the giver, that the person that those memories are transferred to chooses to try to share it with the world, with society, to have it return to the way it was before, the way it is now, where people are able to experience joy, sadness, anger, the full spectrum of emotions and experiences. Pretty interesting stuff, honestly. Science fiction really describes such a future because an accurate description is by definition incomprehensible. And I think like whenever we're discussing complex philosophical questions like this, it's like it always helps to think about and discuss the moral implications, like what's it really going to mean if these concepts are applied? What's it really going to mean? Because in the case of the giver, it's like people just kind of started living like gray blobs. It's like, do we really want that? Or do we want it to be more like that Rick and Morty episode where instead all the negative elements are taken out? And I am of the opinion and belief that the Rick and Morty version is the one that would be better. If we can achieve that, that'd be amazing. Where instead of like completely wiping everything out, just take away all the bad things. Like, just get rid of the bad stuff. Leave all the good stuff in. You know? Producing a film about the life of some super cyborg is akin to producing Hamlet for an audience of Neanderthals. And is that because people won't understand it? I think that's what Yuval's saying here. It's like because he thinks that people won't understand the life of this superhuman, super cyborg. Indeed, the future masters of the world will probably be more different from us than we are from Neanderthals. Whereas we and the Neanderthals, or at least human, our inheritors will be godlike. I think he's right about that. How do we know that? Compare people of today to people from 2,000 years ago. It's like we are extremely advanced. We have advanced technology. We have smartphones. If you showed a smartphone to anyone in Jesus' time, they would have looked at you like you were a magician. Like, what even is this? Like, it seems like magic. And it's probably going to be the same way 2,000 years again in the future. If they introduce their technology to our time, it will be kind of probably the same way. Like what? You got those. We can only imagine, like, what it's going to be like in that time. Because no one, I don't think anyone in Jesus' time could have predicted smartphones. I don't think anyone could have even imagined smartphones. It's because of that cognitive revolution, and then later the Industrial Revolution, the Scientific Revolution, all these revolutions that are happening that allow these developments to occur. And yeah. Again, and I said this yesterday too, it's like the future is a lot better than today. If you had the choice, I don't think anyone would want to be born today. I think almost anyone, if you ask them, would rather been born 10 years in the future. And yeah, there are people who are like nostalgic for the time when they were born. It's like, oh yeah, like me, it's like the 90s definitely were cool. We had Rocko's Modern Life on TV. We had Pokemon. We had Pokemon cards and Game Boy Colors. But if I was born 10 years in the future, in 2001, life really wasn't that much more advanced. In 2001, I think we had. I know the internet was much bigger in 2001. I know that. But yeah, case in point, it's like things were more advanced. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's like even 2001 to 2011, 2011 to 2021. It's like even the iPhones are more advanced. It is more advanced. If I could have been born 500 years in the future, I probably wouldn't have had any of the problems that I had in my actual life. Like, my life would have just been a lot better if it was 521. But, it is what it is. I'm here. It's 2021. Yippee whippy whippy. I'm gonna go watch some episodes of Futurama and try to fantasize about what the future is like. Physicists define the Big Bang as a singularity. It is a point at which all the known laws of nature did not exist. Time, too, did not exist. I think theoretically nothing existed before the Big Bang. Even the Big Bang is not entirely well understood by scientists. It's like the question is, what caused the Big Bang? People don't, even our most advanced scientists still don't really know. It is thus meaningless to say that anything existed before the Big Bang. Exactly, it is beyond the current scope of human understanding. We simply cannot understand it. But we might be able to at some point in the future. And when we do, people will become smarter. The world will become wider. We might find ourselves on another planet or another state of being that's higher than the one that we have. And everything will be really good. We may be fast approaching a new singularity when all the concepts that give meaning to our world me, you, men, women, love, and hate will become irrelevant. I would say it's already somewhat happening with transgender people. Like, even gender norms are being challenged already. All the pronoun stuff, it's like he, she, you, they. Like, none of that existed 50 years ago. It's like you were a boy or a girl. If you did not fit into those two categories, you were kind of an outcast in society. I think that is still the case today to some extent, but our understandings of all these concepts are changing. And it could be related to population patterns too. There are just more people today. So it's understandable that there are more variations today. It's like, yeah, there are more people, so there's more ways to play the game called life. Anything happening beyond that point is meaningless to us. Yeah, who knows? Who knows how long in the future that's going to be. They're interesting concepts. The main things that I am enjoying reading about in Sapiens right now are learning about all of the cool ways that the world is going to be better in the future. Like, heck yeah, man. Like, technology, like my laptop, technology improving the world. And it's like someday I'm gonna wake up and it's gonna be like perfect utopia. I don't know if I can think of a good example, like heaven on earth, like, I don't know. Like, I'll have everything that I've ever asked or needed. Someday when I wake up, I'll have everything I could want or need. Or, maybe not. Maybe I'll stop existing before that happens, but, we'll have to see what happens with the world. Okay, that was Storm Soul. Today's episode of our reading series. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope it's offered some serious food for thought. Us taking a peek into the past and future. I'll try to get that into our groove each day around the evening time. And how consistent am I going to be able to be with that? I'm not exactly sure. I can't really make any promises or guarantees at this point, but I'm going to try to have as much as I can. And yeah, if I need to change course, I can always change course. So I hope you enjoyed this show and series. I might be trying to gym too, maybe tomorrow, and that might change up my whole exercise routine. My arm is still a little bit sore from yesterday, so yeah, I'll have to see how I'm feeling tomorrow, but I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Show Summit.